All right, Jen, so if we're talking about the incident strategic alignment process, and we talk about Pillar 1 being critical values at risk, can you tell me why it is important that this is right on the front end, or why is this Pillar 1?
I've heard incident commanders talking about all they really need to know to get going is what's important here, and why is it important, and what makes it important. After that, they can get off and running. They can make good decisions. And it's a lot like when we're a child. If we know the why behind things, we can make better informed choices. So it's important to get that common operating picture established right out of the gates. The incident commanders are brought in by the agency administrators, and if we don't understand why, what they're hoping for us to protect or do for them, we won't be successful.
No, that's great. So values conversations have been taking place for years between IMT and agency administrators. Why is this critical values at risk conversation any different?
Historically, I would say that incident management teams have made the decision for agency administrators. They often have come in, and I've been guilty of it on a team myself, is you look at a map and you decide what you think is important. This is the first real opportunity to right-size that and put the agency administrators in the position to tell us as incident management teams what is important to them and to their cooperators, to those local communities. And they can articulate that and explain it. So not only do they identify what it is, but what makes that thing so special, so unique, and what things are not at the top of the list that maybe we would automatically think that we should be protecting.
So when you say right-sizing, we both know there's hundreds of values out there in the landscape that units are charged with considering or managing or protecting. How do we know what is truly a critical value at risk, or how do we right-size that conversation?
That's a good point. And by narrowing down that vast number of hundreds or maybe even thousands of things, we're not saying we're not going to do anything to protect those values. But we do need to understand that in a world of limited resources and limited time before fire impacts things, which are truly critical. Now, that can be hard to determine too. What makes a value critical? What makes those things rise to the top? And we like to help agency administrators think about it in a way that it's significant enough that it should inform the strategy, not just the tactics. We still can tactically protect things, but strategically, what are those handfuls of things that rise to the top that you might actually ask responders to take an elevated level of risk to protect? Slightly elevated level of risk. It's that important, that critical.
So with the ISAP process, we talk a lot about this being very inclusive of the incident management team, key stakeholders, having your full C&G potentially in a lot of these strategy conversations. But when we're talking about this critical values at risk conversation, is this a place for a bit more of a container conversation, or how does that look?
Yep, this is really important to give agency administrators that time to build trust with the incident management team and to be able to articulate the nuances that are going on in their communities. And so the first thing that's important is recognizing relationships. We need to make sure that all agency administrators, regardless of their rank, whether they're federal or state or county or even smaller municipal levels, they have a voice in the room to speak for their values. There may be other people there like maybe timber companies or energy companies or local officials that would benefit. This is not a cooperators meeting, don't hear me say that, but it's a real opportunity for us to hear some of the nuances behind things, to hear some of the tough decisions that agency administrators are faced with. If we only have one shot crew or one load of retardant, how would they like us to deploy those assets? And sometimes that can be a very difficult thing to share and to communicate. And that's why we don't necessarily recommend the entire C&G to be present. Maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 10 people. The agency administrators and the ICs will make that decision.
So we've recognized the importance of doing this right on the front end of a team's tour. If I'm an incoming incident management team, how do I initiate this process, or how do I set myself up for success to efficiently and effectively have a critical values at risk conversation?
That's a really good question. And it can come from the agency administrator who's bringing the team in, or it can come from the incident management team. If they use it and haven't heard from the agency administrator that they'd like to use ISAP, that's another opportunity for a conversation. But right away, it's important to have this very first in the conversation. So probably at in-brief before the team has taken command, or certainly at the point of transition if there's a previous team in place. But there's a few things that can definitely set them up. In fact, let's take a look at some of the mechanics of how to actually do the doing with Pillar 1.